A young crew of German sailors grow up real quick when they fulfill their duty on a submarine in the dangerous waters of World War II. We simply couldn't do submarine season without Das Boot, so let's dive deep and see if it lives up to its reputation. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
Mildew is good for you. It's the next best thing to fresh lettuce.
This is a movie podcast, and we are working through submarine season here on the Collector's Cut. We've done a couple of 50s movies, but we're getting to a bigger one today. We're hitting Das Boot, which is arguably the most prestigious submarine movie. I won't say the one that most people have seen, just because it is in German, so I imagine a lot of people, at least in the West, maybe haven't seen it for that reason. But it is the most prestigious one. It's kind of one that you might have heard about, even if you don't watch a lot of foreign movies, which, you know, it just translates as The Boat, but that sounds so boring that it still gets referred to as Das Boot. I've always found it really interesting which foreign films get translated when they're in an English-speaking territory and which ones just keep their original language title because it just sounds fancier. It's kind of funny how it shakes up sometimes.
I feel like it has to stem from, does it get popular from like the snooty people who watch it in the original and then like it spreads out from there? Or is it something where it gets localized and therefore we get a translation first?
I don't know. It's because there's definitely examples of movies like, you know, we did a Criterion movie called Revenge, which is just revenge, but it's like, no, Revenge sounds more unique. It sounds more interesting. So let's just call it Revenge.
I mean, from a marketing perspective, if it's just going to blend into the background, it absolutely makes more sense to keep it as the other word. Yeah,
but sometimes it's like, no, we're going to just change it to, you know, whatever the English word is, or maybe just a new title entirely if something fits better. But anyway.
And then whatever they were doing for the Godzilla series, where they just made stuff up.
Yeah, they just completely made up new titles. And they also re-edited those, though, in a lot of cases. So that was a whole mess. But yeah, Das Boot. Wolfgang Petersen directed, also written, although adapted from a book. And this is a lot more harder hitting than the previous submarine movies we have done. This is a lot more gritty, a lot more, let's actually look at how horrific it is to live on a submarine and like fear your life and all that. Very much that kind of thing. But it is a West German film, which is funny because I didn't really think about that as I was watching it. I just read that before we started. It's a West German film. I was like, oh yeah, it's the 80s, so yeah. Germany's split in two. It's actually relevant to say, which makes sense. I don't see East Germany producing this movie at the time period.
Are you kidding me?
I guess that just makes complete sense. But yeah, so obviously this is a movie from the German perspective. This is a German submarine we're following. And I mean, there's not really much of a premise to tell you really beyond just they go out in the submarine and it's one of their tours. So, well,
I mean, there's the little text bit at the beginning that basically says like, it's not going well.
Yes.
The entire U-boat stuff is not going well.
The background at the start is pretty grim. It's basically, hey, the British Navy's actually doing a really good job taking out German submarines. Most people don't come back home from them. Things are heating up. And it's only like 1941, I think it said at the start.
Yes, sounds right.
It's early. I mean, some people are only just entering the war in 1941. So, we'll start spoiler free though. Although we know who wins the war. At least I assume you know who wins the war, but you know that's not.
But at the same time, that's not the point of the movie. The movie does not go all the way up until the end of World War II.
It does not. No. But yeah. Spoilers. Germany loses. But yeah.
What? I've been reading the wrong textbooks.
Hey, are we speaking German, David?
Germanic descent language.
The reason why I say that is because I remember in like primary 7, so 7th grade, for comparison for you, some kid in my class just asked the teacher who won World War II because he didn't know, and she just looked him point blank and said, "Are you speaking German?" And that was the response he got.
Fair, but also, are the Germans speaking English?
Well, no, but they were the ones trying to take over everywhere else. We weren't trying to take over them.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, no, America's really good about not taking over places. Anyway,
Look, it makes sense, all right? It worked well enough. So anyway, yes, so we'll start spoiler-free. We'll give you a warning before we get the spoilers, and if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, hit the like button, helps out a bunch if you do, and you can support everything over at Patreon, get some bonus stuff, it helps out. Thanks to everyone who already does, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So, Jürgen Prochnow plays the captain in this. He's kind of the big name that everyone remembers because he went on to be in a lot of other things. Famously, went on to play a spaceship captain in Wing Commander, where he would say a lot of the same lines of dialogue that he kind of says in this movie, but in a much worse context, and a much more sillier, because, you know, saying, shh, a destroyer's hunting us in space is stupid because it's space and there's no sound. It's not really a factor, but I love bringing that up every chance I get.
They've got space technology to sense vibrations between voids. Whatever. I love bringing that up. It's my favorite thing to bring up. It's such a stupid movie. So yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, it's a group of, you know, sailors going to a submarine. They're going out, and it's like a contrast of how are they all acting and feeling before they go on the boat. How does it change over the course of their time there? The trials and tribulations, the near-death experiences, all that stuff. The big other thing that the opening sets up is that because they've lost so many submarines, the crews they're sending out are getting younger and younger. They're putting out fresh, you know, 21, 22-year-olds onto a bunch of submarines. So on this particular boat, the captain, obviously, he's like, you know, 50 or whatever, 40s, 50. His chief engineer, I think they said at one point, he's 27 and he's the oldest member of the crew aside from the captain. So it's like that you know, that gives you the picture of like the age ranges here. Although it does also have that thing where I'm looking at this guy going, he looks older than I do now. I don't believe he's 27, but sure, you're telling me he is, so I'll believe you. Yeah. You just said 27 there. I'm like, that dude is at least 35. Like, there's no way that I'm going to believe 27 out of that. But you know, it was World War II. It ages a man.
Well, even the 80s, like if you watch like actors in the 80s, there's a lot of times where you'll go, wait, that person's 25 in this scene. He looks 10 years older than I do now.
my wife just began watching through Dawson's Creek just to check it off the list. And boy, is it fun to be like, what are you talking about? We're just 15. And it's like, yeah, okay, buddy. All right.
Which was even worse then, arguably, because they all looked even older quicker.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. It's only getting worse with time, because the more you look at it, like, you are in your mid-30s, man. I know you're not, but you look like it.
Yeah. Well, it's getting better with time in the grand sense, because, like, younger actors now are looking younger. Look at Tom Holland. Tom Holland looks like a baby still. Like,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
You get away with it now.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm blanking on his last name. Joshua from Fringe.
Oh, Joshua Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah, Joshua Jackson. He almost nails it. He's still got that little bit of a baby face. Sure. He's kind of that kind of actor. He nails it. But James Van Der Beek, Jesus, not even close.
Yeah, that's fair. So, yeah, I mean, I guess okay. I mean, you hadn't seen this before, right?
No. I mean, I've you know, cultural osmosis. I've heard about it. Yes. I knew it existed. I was aware of the gist of it. But I mean, even just as much as sitting down to watch it, there were like so many versions we were talking about, getting through and all that. I had no idea like the history of the movie, all that other stuff. Honestly, I thought it was going to be, without spoiling too much of the plot, obviously, I thought it was going to be a lot more in the vein of the previous two movies we did, of like,
oh right,
you know, focused on a specific battle or like ship v ship or whatever like that. But no, it's more of just the life of a submariner.
Yeah, and also war sucks. So that's the other main
of course
thing going on here. Yeah. I mean, I had seen it before. It'd been some time ago. You mentioned multiple versions there. We should probably just like quickly explain that. So, we both watched the director's cut, and the director's cut is how just about everyone seeing the movie is going to see it. It's the one that's available everywhere now. There was a shorter theatrical cut originally, which was about an hour or so shorter. The version we watched was 3.5 hours long, to be clear. There was an even longer mini-series version in the mid-80s, and then it was sort of re-edited again. So the first time it was a mini-series was 3 episodes, then it got turned into 6 episodes for certain markets. There was a DVD of the miniseries at some point in the early 2000s, but it's not been ever put out really since then. I suspect that that's because all of the extra bits that aren't in the director's cut are probably not HD ready, and maybe they don't have the original elements, or maybe they just don't want to spend the money cleaning them up to make them look good enough to be in HD with the rest of the movie. But the director's cut seems to be the way to go, and everyone's just kind of accepted that's the better one versus the theatrical. Now, I'm saying that from reputation. I've never seen the theatrical cut. I've only ever seen the director's cut, but certainly that seems to be somewhere someone decided, yeah, the director's cut's the way to go. It's the middle ground between 5 hours, which is ridiculous, and something that feels a bit too truncated, even at 2 hours, 20 minutes.
It feels to me, and I might be way off base, it feels to me like the theatrical cut is, okay, here's what is probably going to work for the audience to get it down to this limit. And then the uncut version is just throw everything at the wall. And when we hit the director's cut, that's him listening to what worked out of the uncut version. And let's throw that back in as well. Yeah.
So the director's cut came last. That was kind of him refining it based on what was available. And I don't know if he always wanted to do a director's cut or if it's something that came along later as an idea. But ultimately, that's become the de facto version that's available everywhere, for better or worse. And I think for most people, it's probably just for better. So, yeah. Unless you're like a super fan and you want to track down and watch every version to see the differences and compare. And
look, I did that for, what was the name of it? Champagne and Bullets? Get-Even.
Get-Even,
I did that for that, but I will never do that again.
Yeah, but that was like a 90-minute movie. It's not like you were doing... Like you watching both cuts of that movie was still shorter than this cut we watched at this, but...
And that's why I am not committed to anything like that ever again.
So, I guess without further ado, we'll see how we feel about it and go from there. David, what did you think of A Despot?
I really liked it. I don't feel like I need to beat around the bush or qualify that. I think it's a very well done, well-made movie. It's definitely a slow burn. It's definitely something where you intentionally feel the sort of breaking down, the just waiting, and it sets up that in your mindset of just how much of this is just waiting for something to happen, whether that be you're waiting for a ship to pass by, you're waiting for a ship to show up, and all this stuff is on top of the idea of any encounter is potentially going to sink you and kill you, which obviously is true for almost any wartime naval activity, whether you're in a submarine or not, but the submarine being especially dangerous because you will all implode and die. You can't even swim for safety. So no, I think the movie does a great job with its characterization. There's a very large cast. It doesn't focus on everybody enough to give them each their own thing, but it's a bigger amount than you would think it was. And the core bunch that we really follow, I think they do a fantastic job there, both casting and acting. So no, I mean, without spoiling too much of where it ends up in the end, I think that it sends a powerful message. It does a great job of getting you to root for the Nazis, but to be clear, it's not even the Nazis, it's these submariners. The political parties at play in this war don't come into the movie. It doesn't matter. You only specifically care about the fact that these are the people we're following and they're just trying to survive, and we can relate with that on just any sort of human level.
Yeah, I mean, I get why you made that joke, but yeah, I think it's actually a disservice to the movie to say we're just following Nazis, because it's actually very clear right from the get-go that most of these characters don't really feel that positive about who's in charge of their country. Other than they had to have one character who's the devout, loyal guy who cares about the whole thing. But right from the get-go, it sounds like most of them, and certainly the ones who are a bit older and are maybe a bit more of a veteran, seem to have a very they're keeping it to themselves because they know they can't just openly talk about it, but they are keeping it. It's not hard to see how they feel in their eyes or the way they react to certain comments or things like that. But. Yeah, no, it's a very good movie. It's such a change of pace from those last two that we did, which are definitely older and cheesier and have some good things about them, don't get me wrong, but this is no, this is oozing an atmosphere at certain points. It's got tension up the wazoo. It's got the quiet waiting for something, both in the they're waiting for action to happen, like, and almost like an intentional boredom sense at some points, but and other times it's like, no, it's this the quiet tension of like, we might get found here, we might get destroyed, so we're kind of all try to be quiet because we have to be, run silent, run deep, as it were. So all of that stuff is just a lot more harder hitting. It feels like it's actually really saying something about war. The last two movies, obviously, they had a bit of nuance in some respects, but although the first one we did critique being a bit too kind of like happy about the Americans being like, oh, we're all pro, like fighting for America, and we're all happy about it the entire time.
Nothing bad could ever happen to us.
Yeah. This is like, no. War is hell. This is awful. And anyone who's enthusiastic about any of this at the start of this is going to have that beat out of them by the end of the story. They are going to change. They are going, and the movie kind of like tells you that at the start. Like the captain's like, oh, these are all young green guys who are like excited to see some action. They are not prepared for how they're all going to feel by the time this is done. And that's, that's kind of the main point of the movie, larger than anything else. And I think they keep like anything to do with the Nazis very, very limited. Like there's nothing really on the submarine to remind you of it, to the point where there's something about, I don't know, an hour 40 into the movie where they meet some other characters who act more like you'd expect from typical movie Nazis, and it sticks out so much. It feels like a jolt to the system, and it feels so uncomfortable, even for the other characters in the scene, where you're like, this is all pomp and circumstance, and these characters have been through hell. They do not care about you saluting. It just is not where we're at. So I think this is clearly made... this is clearly made in a very reflective Germany, looking back at how things were, and it's very notable. This is never like it's never glorifying this idea of like, oh, if they do happen to take out like an enemy vessel of some kind, it's never like, if anything, it feels kind of dour. It never feels like this super happy thing, and ultimately the end goals of the movie are never really about that. It's never, because a lot of more, dare I say, propaganda-esque war movies, they'll end with like, oh, we it was hard, but we succeeded doing this really important thing by the end, so we're all going to be happy and cheer. And there is nothing like that in this movie. This is not a movie that's trying to glorify anything. And the few characters that think they want to glorify things are like, the looks on their faces by the end of the movie says everything that needs to be said about what they have learned. So, yeah, it's very good. Very good.
Yeah, I do, specifically that idea of glorifying. You're right, it doesn't do any glorifying, but I also do appreciate that the movie, it still does. It's not just a pure misery fest top to bottom. Like, there are things that are put in front of them, and you, as the audience, want to see them overcome it. You want to see them do whatever. And obviously, in whatever way they overcome it, sometimes it is just, hey, we did it, moving on to the next thing, or we overcame it, but it came at its own consequence, and then we have to deal with that. And so it's this ongoing toils and tribulations until we finally get to a steady point towards the end.
Yeah, and there's also this idea that even if they do celebrate something, it kind of feels like we're just trying to find some happiness, that we've done something of value, because we've just been out here so long and we're so miserable that, like, yeah, let's cheer about the fact that we did this thing, but it always has this undertone. There's always this kind of subtext to it to read into. It's never just face value, and I think that keeps it feeling like it's constantly thinking about and analysing what we're talking about with these characters and what we're talking about on the submarine. It's actually, honestly, it's kind of wild. We've done a couple of Wolfgang Petersen movies, and he's a very... Everything after this that he did, is particularly when he did stuff like more in America or wherever else, like, he's a very workman director. He's got a lot of stuff that's just fine or okay. Some interesting stuff. Never-Ending Story is a pretty solid movie, I think, and very creative. But
I've heard good things about Troy.
Is that a joke? Have you actually heard good things about Troy?
No, yeah.
Okay. I didn't think that movie was that well liked, but maybe I'm wrong.
I'm seeing the rating here, and it's standing out amongst everything else he was doing of the era, and I definitely have heard people regard it decently.
Fair enough. And maybe the key there is, like, if someone gives him like some good source material to work from, he'll do a good job directing it. Maybe that's the key. But
you say that, but then there's also Poseidon, where like there was good source material, and then it didn't end up well.
Yeah, but is it like Is it like a rule though, where if the source material is another movie, that's like null and void because then it's a remake?
Maybe. I don't know. Look, we can get into Wolfgang Petersen's inner machinations if you want, but I think it's just kind of
well, no, that's not even that's not about him. That's just in general. If the source material is another movie, it tends to end up sucking. I'm just like
yeah, you're
not always.
Right about that.
That's not 100%, but like remakes, generally speaking, the track record is not particularly strong. And maybe part of the problem with that is just this idea of, well, it's two things for Wolfgang Petersen with Poseidon. Is one, it's a remake, so it's like he's almost having to go out of his way not to just repeat the original movie, and that maybe makes it worse because you're just making decisions to be different. And two, he's also done a lot of stuff with a boat in water, and people, try to survive. And I'm like, yeah, he did this already himself. Yeah. And that's
we had it with a bunch of people who were incredibly concerned about living, and this one is about a bunch of nobodies, and frankly I never got the care that they cared about living.
Yes. So yeah, anyway, the point being is that he's not like a director who's like knocking out bangers. If anything, most of his career is merely just okay movies, and that's kind of a lot of it. And some of them people feel some fondness for if they saw them at the right age or whatever, but it's not like he's knocking out banger after banger. But Das Boot is like critically acclaimed. It's in the 1001 movies to see before you die. It's got acclaim. It's got all this stuff, and you're watching this, and I think you do notice like really inspired moments of direction. They clearly had a really cool set because there's a couple of times they take advantage of a camera going all the way through it, and like so like, oh, we're going to go through every section of this submarine, and maybe they disguise like a cut at one point in the middle with like a bit of fabric covering the camera and back again.
I don't think so.
Like,
because I've looked into this, and like they apparently just made 2 like full-size submarines, essentially, one of which for the interior shots and one of which for exterior shots, and by God, did they do it. Like, it's incredible to see exactly. And that's the other bit of it, that comparing it to those first 2 movies, the first 2 we did, there was a sense of enclosure with the submarine shots. Anytime they were down in the submarine, you definitely felt like this was a closed off sealed space. But I would argue it very narrowly felt cramped. This movie gives you cramped. This movie is 100% the defining feature of cramped.
Well, I mean, the first thing they do to really sell that is simply when the officers are having dinner, every time someone has to pass through to get to a different part of the ship, they have to ask permission to pass, and 2 of the people who are like the lower ranked officers have to get up to let them through, because that's literally how tight the space is that when they're sitting at the dinner table, they're blocking the passage between 2 sections.
Yeah, there's also a bit where the lieutenant, guy who's going to be documenting the whole thing, and we'll get into characters, he's being walked through, he's being showed in the submarine, for the sake of the audience as well. And the one guy's like, yep, here's where all of our bunks are. People bunk up together in terms of like when one guy is out doing his job, the other person will sleep in the bed, and then they just trade out the same cot. Like, we don't have enough cots in here for everyone to be sleeping at the same time.
Yeah, which is probably fine, because I imagine on a submarine, like, there has to be a shift on duty at all times anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
And this character that you brought up here, the lieutenant who's here, he's kind of there as like a guest to document things. And the funny thing is, when they introduced him at the start, I was thinking, oh, so he's like a spy for the government, but that's not really what he is. He's kind of there to just write about it, to basically tell people how heroic they are, to basically make propaganda effectively. This is the character that's probably the most close to the person who wrote the book, because this was like a semi-autobiographical thing that the guy wrote, and this was about his experiences. So this character's kind of like a version of him to an extent. I'm sure it's not the exact same as who he was, but like it's definitely the avatar for him. Yeah. And indeed the audience, because like you said, he's the one who's constantly having stuff explained to him, because he doesn't know what a submarine, how it works, and all these other bits. So people are constantly explaining stuff to him. And the second officer, the ginger, who I'm probably going to... he not only does a lot of explaining, he also has fun with him, where he'll lie to him about certain things to try and make him more worried, that kind of thing. But in a lot of ways, the lieutenant's kind of like the most important character in the movie, in the sense that he's the one who's witnessing everything, and the one who has been the most like shocked by it and affected by it. And we constantly... like, his reaction shots at any point in the movie are like the important reaction shot. It always goes back to him, and that's kind of the important focal of the scene.
And it's so good over the course of the movie as well, because you start off like the very first things that are happening is not even like, I think it's just within the first half an hour. It's not even like a war thing. They're just testing out the depth that the submarine can go to. They're like seeing how deep we can dive. And you just see the lieutenant sweating bullets.
Yeah.
Like he's hearing all the creaking and all the like rattling of the ship outside, and he is not okay. And then fast forward to the end of the movie, when after everything he's seen, everything that's been going on, despite all the craziness, there's almost this calm, this like resignation on his face at a certain point where he's just like, yeah, I'm probably gonna die here. This is probably what's going to happen.
Yeah. Arguably, he's got more nerves than some of the actual sailors. But by the time you get into the sort of third, if this movie even splits it into 3 acts, that's debatable.
This is a 17-act movie, my friend.
So yeah, we got a captain, we got a lieutenant, we have the chief engineer, who's very important. He's got some personal stuff going on as well, but obviously he's the main one fixing things when stuff goes wrong, that kind of thing. We have a navigator who pops up occasionally. He's always the one kind of like reading the radar, the radio, telling where things are, that sort of thing. We have the first watch officer, I should say, he's the one that we mentioned earlier, who's kind of actually the diehard Nazi. He's always like, even when everyone else is letting their beard grow out, he's like shaving constantly. He's making sure his hair's all well kept. He's wearing his full uniform, and he sticks out like a sore thumb because everyone's having dinner and he's like neatly cutting things up into little pieces, and everyone else is just sort of wolfing down, and he sticks out, and to the point where like they all start kind of making fun of him, even the captain, and it's kind of making it clear, hey, all your idolizing of like Hitler is like does not matter here. We do not care. And it's it's one of those things where like the last movie we did, or was it the first movie we did, whatever one that was, that we did some of the German submarine side of things, had that one character who was super devout, and then the others on the boat were kind of like, all right, he's one of them. But it stands to reason that on a crew on a ship, it's like a lot of them have been enlisted either because they just had to, or because they were conscripted, or whatever it was. And then maybe the percentage that were actually devout Nazis was probably fairly low, all things considered, and probably just a pain to everyone else there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing that I especially appreciate about this movie is how they represent the Nazi idealism is this radical sweeping wave that maybe a lot of people didn't believe in. They weren't like ardently supporters or whatnot, but they also didn't feel comfortable speaking out against it. And so you get this sort of blanket acceptance just by silence. But then when, a guy like this shows up and he's separated from the rest of the world, he's not the one that's in the position of power, he has people that he's the answer to. Yeah, people are going to feel a bit more comfortable just ribbing him and being like, hey, why the hell are you doing this? It's stupid and you're dumb for thinking that. And the other part of it that makes him really stand out like a sore thumb is over the course of the movie, they explicitly say everyone grows a beard. Like, no one's going to be bothering shaving down to here. Everyone's doing that. But he is so uptight and up to like the Nazi dress code and all that, that there's one bathroom on this ship and they keep on showing him using it so that he can stay clean shaven. And he is just an asshole because of that.
Yeah, everyone's pissed at him because he's hogging the bathroom when they're all, it's like space is tight. Cleanliness is a thing that comes up in a couple of different ways. Sometimes played for a little bit of comedy, honestly. But it's, I think the way it handles that stuff is super interesting, and it's not like it's something that even it just reveals like later on. It's like, oh, we keep quiet about it, and then the feelings about like what the country actually is right now is like brought up in a big dramatic moment. No, like the opening 10 minutes has characters kind of like almost saying something and then kind of like, okay, I should probably not say it, but you get the impression of how they actually feel. It's like, the fact that I'm serving in this military is because I'm a military man, not because I'm actually someone who devoutly believes in the propaganda. And someone even, like the captain even uses that word at one point. He clearly is anti the current regime, but this is his job. He's here to just sort of try and do what he's supposed to do, keep people alive, destroy enemy vessels, whatever, and that's it.
Yeah, he's fighting for his country in the abstract, not for the party.
Yeah,
like he's fighting for the sake of his people back home, so that they don't have to come out here and fight.
And maybe that sounds obvious to some people in terms of like, of course, a lot of people were actually like that, but I feel like movies, especially about World War II, definitely typically just paint as like, oh well, the Nazis are just like all Nazis, and they're just they're like they're just the villains, and that's it. You don't think about it.
I would also pivot that around. Of a lot of World War II movies are like, the Americans, the whatever, they're all red, white, and blue. Like, yes, we're fighting for freedom. We're doing all this stuff. We're like, a lot of people probably signed up because they had to. Like, they were conscripted. They may not have had that same sort of star-spangled awesome to them, their viewpoint, but they won, so they're the heroes.
Yeah. Or if not conscripted, certainly, like, the military offers a lot of incentives. Like, so if you're in a pretty rough spot, it's like, hey, we'll pay for, like, your education or whatever if you go and, whatnot. So
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, it's definitely a bit more nuanced. It feels like we're in this life with these characters for the stretch of time, and it is a long movie, right? And could it be trimmed down a little bit without losing much? There's probably some truth in that, but I think there's also something to be said of, like, it's supposed to feel like you've been on this long trip with them, so the runtime actually kind of helps really give that feeling.
Yeah, I can't think of any, like, full subplots I would cut. All I could think is trimming stuff down. That's, like, there's several sequences that could be trimmed down and you wouldn't lose anything, except for that feeling of you're here with them, it's been forever, and you don't know when this is going to end. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, how much would you even trim down, like, time-wise, if you actually went through and did that? Like, I mean, you could argue, isn't that the theatrical cut? But I don't know. Like, I wonder if the theatrical actually does lose some things that are probably quite important, at least as far as we were concerned.
I mean, there are websites that, like, completely dedicate to differences between.
I'm not about
to look through an hour's worth of differences.
No. I'm just saying, though, for the purpose of, like, posing this idea of, like, just trimming out a little bit of what we'd consider maybe fat. Like, how much would you actually lose? Because I would bet you'd only lose like 15 or 20 minutes. I don't think you'd get under 3 hours.
Yeah, probably.
It'd be my guess. So, yeah, but I mean, that's the bulk of the main characters. There's a couple of side characters that'll probably pop up as we're talking in spoilers, but that's the main gist of the characters we're going to actually really spend to get time getting to know and changing over the course of the movie and that kind of thing. And as far as anything else, it makes some really conscious choices to mostly not show what's up in the surface of the water. Like, we typically just stay in the submarine with them. We don't get a lot of, like, aerial shots of any ships that are up there or anything like that. I mean, not that we never get an exterior shot. We do a couple of times, typically, but it's typically stuff that's, like, right next to the submarine. It's typically right where with them, as opposed to, something from, like, a big wide shot up top. And the only time we really see ships up top is when we're seeing it from the perspective of them looking through the periscope or them looking through binoculars on the the surface level when they're up top.
I really do appreciate that as conscious choice, because it does, unlike the previous two movies where we get to see both sides, we keep on cutting to, like, half the decisions are made on one, then the other, da-da-da. This one, it so entrenches you with life with this submarine that keeping the quote-unquote enemy at a distance, keeping them as just the other that we only see through telescopes and binoculars and stuff like that, it only helps to further that idea of what they're doing from their perspective.
Yeah. But it adds into that isolation feeling, and that feeling of, like, we're kind of powerless down here just waiting to find out if, did that torpedo hit anything? Have we been picked up on their sonar? Like all those things that we don't know. So we never cut to the other side to see them, like, oh, we've got a reading captain, and then there's a German U-boat down there. Like, that would ruin that if we saw that. We're with these characters 100% because we're with them waiting to see like the signs from their perspective. And the signs usually are, oh, there's explosives coming our way, or there's whatever it is, So I think that's a very effective choice for tension, and also really sticking with this idea that we're with them. We are effectively like conduits of the lieutenant. We are spending a tour on the submarine with them and like seeing what that feels like and all the trials and tribulations that come with that. That is the point.
Yeah.
So cutting away to anyone else would be completely betraying that.
Yep. By the way, I did find a comparison website.
Oh, sure. Go
between on. Directors and that. It seems like it is just a lot of like 5 seconds here, 6 seconds here, where it's just a longer shot or a different reaction shot and stuff like that. There are sections that list like not entire conversations, but at least parts of conversations that were expanded upon that they just cut lines out of. But I have yet to see anything that's more than 2 minutes removed at a time here.
Yeah, but 2 minutes is still a lot to remove from a scene.
It is, but like with the pacing of these scenes, like specifically looking at one here, it's 2 minutes and 21 seconds. It's looking at what it says here, it's just a bunch of like reaction shots and a couple of lines. It's not like actually anything of content from the viewpoint of like a full subplot or like a full scene or anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's still over an hour though of cuts. That's still a lot to take out from a pacing perspective. So, yeah, I don't think. I mean, not that I would try, but if you told me to cut out what I think could trim this movie down, I don't think I'd be cutting over an hour if it was the point I was making, regardless of what the theatrical cut actually is. So
yeah, that's fair.
I think we're probably ready for spoilers. I think.
Yeah, I think the only thing I want to mention just right before we go is it has a very memorable theme.
It does.
I really like the main theme of this because it manages to, when it wants to play it as like upbeat and like, yes, we're sailing the seas, we're doing our job. They have a version for that. When they want to make it downbeat, something bad has happened, they have a version for that. They have a version for literally every mood you could want, and it always sounds good. Yeah,
it has that thing where like it can sound a little heroic and a little bit propaganda-esque almost by design, but it's very easy for them to just turn a few, like, you know, turn the scale down or whatever they're doing, you know, musically to just make it sound a little bit darker. Like there's a little bit of weight under there that's a bit different, and it's not just hollow heroics. So, you know, fanfare, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So, yeah, the music's good, yeah. And it's not like it's not overbearing either. Like there's long stretches with nothing. Like it'll play usually when there's a shot of the submarine in the water, like when it's up top at surface level. But I feel like there's long stretches without, and it was only actually in the last, like, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes where I was noticing a bit more of it actually inside the submarine for a stretch, because it was sort of ramping up some tension. But there's definitely lots of stretches where, like, when they're in the submarine stuff, where they're just, yeah, they'll just have the sound. And I think that's an important thing to mention as well, is the sound design here is that, yeah, it's making use of, you know, drips all happening all around you, machinery clanking all around you. It's very atmospheric. I will say there's a little bit of controversy is maybe a strong word, but purists definitely don't like this. That when they did the director's cut DVD, when they made the 5.1 mix, which even if you're not listening to it in 5.1 now, you'll still be getting a down mix of that 5.1 version. They basically put in a lot of new sound effects, replacing original sound effects when they made that mix. Now, I'm sure I've never heard the original mix. I know purists would say, no, the original stereo track should be there in some capacity, yada yada. But I will say, listening to this on a 5.1 system, it was very effective. Like, I was, you know, hearing atmospheric stuff all around me constantly. Waves were crashing, bass was booming. It was very effective, especially when it was quiet and there was just like little drips happening, like, you know, over my right shoulder or whatever. Like, that stuff was very good. So I get the purist point of view, but as a 5.1 mix, it's actually quite good.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, but like I care so little about the purist opinion here.
I mean, the first thing you hear in the movie as the you know, the opening titles are playing, you just hear that sonar beep, you know? That's the first thing you hear. Just to get you in the mood. You're like, yep, that's exactly the vibe we want going into a submarine movie. So, okay, we're getting to spoilers then. So, Despot, spoilers ahead, you have been warned. Or spoilers ahoy, I should say, because we're sailing.
Or whatever the German version is.
Ahoy! I don't know.
I'm sure it's just a translation thing, because I know that this is said in terms of like firing arrows or whatever. But whenever you tell someone to like fire an arrow, you don't say fire, because that doesn't make any sense. You say loose. And I noticed that anytime they were firing the torpedoes, they said loose. And I don't know if that was like the subtitles taking some liberties and just saying clearly they meant fire, or if the German word is actually loose for fire in that situation.
The one that got me with the translation, that I'm assuming there's a little bit of creative liberties to make, just so it makes sense to an English speaker, is there's a scene where a character's doing a crossword and he says, you know, it's a 4-letter word for this, and then he gives them the answer, which is bath. And all I could think was, Wait, is the word for that in German also 4 letters, or have they just sort of like reworked both parts of it so that it still makes sense as I would answer for a crossword in English?
Well, I can find out. German word for bath. No, it's okay. Well, it's translating bath to German, which apparently is bad. So, I guess. I don't know. How do you say bath in German? Yeah, apparently it's bad. So,
Okay.
yeah, I guess they just... Maybe it was a 3-letter word instead.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is the original dialogue would have been like whatever the right amount of letters was, and then the German word. So they've just changed the amount of letters so it matches the English word, so it makes sense in the subtitles.
I'm sure if we wanted to go back to the scene, we could hear if they said to dry instead of whatever the German word for 4 is.
Sure, I mean, yeah, sure. I wasn't really thinking about it that much, yeah. But it's just one of those things. Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're only talking about it because you were prancing on about something else.
I'm trying to get this review to 3.5 hours so we can just match it up perfectly with the runtime.
No. Let's not do that. Thank you very much. God, corrections I'm making here. Maybe your dubbing issues and
I'm sorry.
Translation issues.
I had to fit 3.5 hours into my schedule that I was not expecting at this point, and I'm very sorry that you could fit that in, no problem. But I have a little bit more trouble.
What do you mean not expect? It's been on the schedule for months.
Yeah, and I thought it was 2.5 hours for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it's nope. Now we're doing 3.5 hours.
It's not my fault. You don't know how to research the movies we're doing properly.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
That's all I'm saying.
If you had bought the 2.5 hour version off iTunes, we would be doing that right now. Don't tell me I'm wrong.
Well, no. We wouldn't be. Well, no. What would have been happening is I would have watched the proper version because I know what the proper version's supposed to be, and I wouldn't have bought it if it wasn't the director's cut because I know the director's cut's the proper version. And let's be real here. If I knew I had the shorter version, I would have lied and told you during the review that you watched a longer version and laughed my way to the bank.
That's fair. I forget that we're operating off of a zero trust environment. That's my bad.
No, there's trust, but I had to watch the longer version of an Uwe Boll movie once, and I'm still holding a grudge about it.
I know, you bring it up more frequently than most people would think.
Look, Uwe Boll leaves a scar, okay? There's like,
I know.
There's damage.
I had, like, I still wake up screaming thinking about that movie, and I watched the shorter version, so, like, I'm sorry. I wish I could help, but I'm not watching a longer version of Das Boot to do it.
So the movie starts with kind of like the night before they're all shipping out, and the captain's introducing the lieutenant to, like, hey, let's go and see where they're all partying, and you can meet the crew. And he's surprised to find out that the random sailors who are pissing on the car as they're driving past are part of the crew. And it's kind of like, hey, these are all young, foolish, men. They're barely, some of them are like 20, 21, whatever the ages are. And they're all green. They're all excited about getting into some action. And that's kind of a thing throughout the first chunk of the movies. They're all part of the reason why they're all frustrated is like, oh, but we need to see some action soon. We're so bored. And it's like, you're going to regret wishing for that. When it eventually comes, you're going to regret that. But that's the big focus here of this party, is just how everyone's having this good time. They're kind of like getting wild. There's dancers around. There's maybe prostitutes. It was hard to tell exactly what was going on. I
for this opening bit, for a very brief period, I thought it was a thing of like, oh, they know that they're going off to die. They've got this whole last night partying sort of thing going on. It had that kind of vibe, but it very quickly was replaced with the idea of, no, this is kind of just selling the myth. This is the idea of, yeah, boys go off to war, you come back heroes, and this is going to be your everyday. And it's that breaking down of that idea that you see over the course of the first act, where they're so bored, but then when they do finally see action, it is hell.
Yep. So we also get this other captain who's a complete drunk from another boat who comes stumbling in. And he's the one who goes up to make a speech, and he's like almost about to make fun of Hitler. Like he's like right on the cusp of it, of like saying something about how stupid their leader is. And he kind of like pauses and everyone's tense because like, even though a lot of them in the room probably won't mind, they know that there's one or two, like the new first officer, he's like, prim and proper. He really cares about all this. He's the only one who's thrown up a salute. And then he just says, like, oh, okay, I'll make fun of Churchill because that's something the propaganda does, and everyone can laugh at that safely, and no one has to feel any bad about it. But it's like,
I love that. I love that bit because like they don't even wait for a punchline. He's just like, yeah, and Churchill, and everyone's like, ah, ha, 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 yeah, Churchill. Yeah, let's talk about that instead. That sounds better.
Oh, he pivoted. Thank God he pivoted. We were in dangerous waters there. Yeah, because it's almost like this is something that comes up a couple times in the movie. There's a really pivotal moment much later on, but this idea of like most of the people in the room probably really don't care on a personal level about what he was going to say, but there's almost this uncomfortable nature of, well, one, someone else might and report him and like it'll lead to something bad, but also maybe even this tension of like, am I going to have to like help like with like taking him in because I have to keep up appearances, I have to like, you know, I'm going to have to be the bad guy here in a minute, and I really don't want to be kind of vibe. So there's a little bit of that mixed in there as well. But the drunken captain luckily pivots, and then he just ends up like throwing up and collapsing in the bathroom like a madman.
They do it a lot later on in the submarine, especially as they're going like stern to bow, where it's just constantly up and down the whole length in a oneer. But they do that in this sequence as well, where I think it's the lieutenant we're following around as like, the night's just going full chaos mode, and he is like stumbling around to the bathroom. The captain's passed out drunk on the floor. There's other people who are like harassing the singer up on stage. Some dude just starts firing off a gun in the middle. A lot of people scatter, but I noticed one dude who just kept dancing on the piano the whole time. Like, it's full chaos, and they just follow it the whole way through.
Yep. And that just sort of sets the table for who these people are. And yeah, like when they're all standing on the submarine the next morning and they're sort of like being waved goodbye by a crowd, there is this pomp and circumstance to it, which the young men seem to be enjoying. Like the ginger's got this smirk in his face. They seem to like the fact that they're being sent off as heroes, effectively. But the captain clearly is taking it in a little bit differently. He's clearly like, oh, this is the facade that's presented up front so everyone can feel good about it. And because it kind of gets into that territory that you get with like Lord of the Rings, the idea of like, you know, like when we come back, everyone's going to want to cheer and be, hey, heroes, let's clap about it. But no one actually knows what the hell we went through and how we're all traumatized by it. But they just want to like make themselves feel better by clapping on the hero returning, and they want like a fun show out of it.
I'm curious. I don't actually know when the original book was published. I know it was somewhere in the 1970s, obviously, for this to be made in the 80s. I'm getting a lot of like, maybe this was published as not a response, but in line with Vietnam, of, you know, all the vets coming back. War was hell, but we try to welcome them back. The vets is like, hey, good job, you did it. And they just don't want to hear it. And then this guy comes out and says like, it's always been this way. It's been this way since World War II at the very least, because I was there. Here's what happened.
Yeah, I don't know if it would necessarily be in response to that, because I have to assume this guy having like all of these notes and stuff, like maybe was like trying to write Das Boot for a long time. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting how it would line up with that, with like kind of those like late days of Vietnam War or just after Vietnam War. It's interesting how it kind of coalesces there a little bit into an anti-war sentiment, which is kind of rife at the time anyway. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. But I think, you know, that whole idea of like when they come back, and I don't even just mean at the very end, because we're in spoilers now, so I can just kind of reference things casually. But like, I don't even just mean at the very end. I mean, like, even that part about 2/3 in when they go to the boat with the pompous Nazi guys, and they're just like, aha, you're heroes. Let's hear of your adventures, and they're all just like, we don't want to talk about this.
I had to piss in a tin can the other day while staying absolutely silent, and then the boat rocked and I got piss all over me.
Like,
That's what happened my day.
But I think starting with them actually enjoying the pomp and circumstance, and then by the time they get any even just a taste of it again later on after they've went through hell, it's like, oh, I don't want to even like entertain this. I don't want to even pretend that I'm enjoying this. This is a bunch of bullshit. I could not give less of this.
I think it's also, especially because this is coming from people who feel higher up in the chain. Like, this isn't the appreciative people that they're fighting for back home. This isn't like their wives and their children and stuff like that. If they had children, obviously they're all very young. This is the people up top who made the call to send them there in the first place.
Yeah, well, not exactly. These aren't the people making those orders, but yeah, they're kind of, they represent that kind of side of things, in the sense that they're all in uniform, they're all kind of pompous. And there's one particular note in that scene where the guy talking to the captain leans in and goes, "Oh, it's not been easy here either. Getting some of these supplies, they're quite tough to come by." And it just kind of feels like you're complaining how tough your job is, and we've just been watching how hard the life in the submarine is. This is like, I don't know, it's like someone like is a firefighter who has to go into burning buildings and like has inhaled smoke and is saving babies and has almost died multiple times, and then a guy who like delivers milk's like, "Oh, my job's quite tough too. I had to wake up at 7 a.m. today."
Yeah.
Like that was basically the tone of that conversation.
I was called out at 4 a.m. on a call, but whatever, man, good for you. It's I mean, that sequence, let me rephrase. So many sequences of this movie exist in somewhat isolation, where obviously the larger things at play are happening, but it doesn't feel like you need to know what immediately happened before to get what's happening now. Like, the idea of all that, like, Nazi up top people, the scene exists there, and you should know that, like, they've went through hell at this point, but you don't really need to know why they're there at that moment for the scene to work. No,
but I would say that it's only effective because we've spent almost 2 hours with them by that point. And the fact that they walk in and these guys all throw up the salute, it feels so alien because we've not seen any of these guys do it, and it just feels weird. And then they mistake the captain for the first officer, because the first officer looks well dressed, and they're like, "Oh, you must be the captain." He's like, "No, this bearded man here, he's actually the captain." And they try
go like full in as well. They're just like, "Ah, you're very well kempt. You must be the high-ranking Nazi officer we're hearing about." And like, no, it's that guy.
And they're nice enough about it after the fact, and obviously the captain knows enough to not say anything that'll get him into trouble, but he is just quiet. He just doesn't respond to a lot of the things that are being said. They present him with this big buffet of food, and we know the food's been kind of rough recently on the boat. All the good stuff's ran out, the stuff's gone kind of bad and whatnot. So this is a whole thing, and it just the culture clash of these dirty sailors who are all got beards and they're all kind of struggling, and they all look dirty, they all look tired. And then these guys in suits are like, "Aha, you must all be proud of yourselves, all the adventures you've been on, and we do a lot of hard work too, but off you go again." Like, it's...
Yeah. I mean, even going back to the beginning of the movie, like, we have that whole sequence where, yes, they had the party the night before and all that, but then we get them showing up on the boat and like the introductions, more or less, and them signing off, and like they're getting the heroic goodbye. They're getting like everyone waving them off. They're throwing flowers, doing whatever. Even the drunk captain comes up and like calls out to them like, "Hey, give them hell, like do what you got to do." And it's all this like highly positive stuff. But at that point, they're still buying it. They're still thinking like, "Yeah, we're going to go off. We're going to sink a bunch of convoy vessels. We're going to be heroes of the war." And they have no idea what's about to happen.
Yeah, all but one. The captain being the one guy who clearly is just like, he's just being quiet. You can tell he's taking this more serious. And there's a little moment where, like before they go down, like they're still up top on the surface for the first time, where the lieutenant is taking a photo of some of the men, and he's like, "Oh, don't take photos of them now. Wait until we're on our way back home." And he says, "Why?" He's like, "Well, because they'll have beards by then. And like it'll feel pretty bad for the British if they think they've been defeated by a bunch of babies who, like should still be sucking on their mother's teat," kind of thing. It's like, oh, it'll look, and it's like, okay, I think, like, I kind of believe what he's saying, but I also think part of what he's really getting at is this idea of like, no, show them how, this is not representative because they're still idealistic right now. They're still too chipper. Wait until you can see the horror on their face.
Yeah, I also think just from the people, because he's snapping pictures left and right. He's going crazy with it. I do also think it's a thing of him just kind of like pushing the camera down and being, "Hey, you have no idea conceptually how long you're about to be here for.
Yeah.
Don't waste all of your film right now."
Yeah, I could see that been part of it as well. I mean, all the setup is here, and like I said, the first like good chunk of this movie is, we're getting to know the characters a little bit, and their interactions, and they're making fun of the pompous one and all that. But it is waiting for the action, and there's frustration at a couple points where, oh, okay, we've got a message saying this is happening, with another sub and a convoy or something. It's like, oh, how far away is it? oh no, it's too far away, we'll never make it, so I guess we're still not seeing any action, and there's frustration from everyone.
Yeah.
Even the captain, although from the captain it feels a little bit different to the others. Like the others, it feels like they're just bored and they want some action. The captain, it feels a bit more like, no, I want to get into some conflicts because the quicker we run out of our torpedoes, the quicker we can go home.
Absolutely. I do love, just to add on to that cramped nature of the whole movie, at one point they're like, boy, I hope we fire off some of these torpedoes because we'll really free up some room if we do that.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, especially whenever they get like supplies later on after the whole meeting the ship in Spain thing, the dock ship in Spain is like, they literally have like food all over the beds, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're not sleeping tonight. We're waiting until we've stored some of this stuff.
I mean, I do. They specifically at one point show that there is a fly in the sub, and it's just like one shot. They don't harp on it as a thing, but like food goes bad quickly if you don't have refrigeration or anything like that. But not having any sort of like worrying about ants or worrying about flies or anything like that is kind of like, yeah, you can if it's going to go bad at the same rate no matter where you put in the ship. It's not like you have to keep it away from like ants and stuff getting to it.
Sure,
there's nothing here on the ship.
Yeah, I mean, because they do go up for air every so often, so that'll be how a fly gets in, potentially, depending where they are. I mean, I don't know, do you get flies, like, in the middle of the Atlantic? I feel like flies would be closer to land.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's somehow on a seabird, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it literally stowed in on a bit of food or something when they left.
Yeah, probably.
That's more likely.
You just got to hope it's not a pregnant one, because that's where you're going to run into issues.
Yeah. And we get like a little bit of bonding. The lieutenant befriends kind of one of the younger guys who reveals that he's engaged to a French girl, because they all launched from occupied France, right? They didn't launch from Germany. And the guy's like, oh, and she's also pregnant. And like, there's a bit of concern there, because he's like, hey, like, if they find out that her kid's half German, like, once all this is over, that might be a big problem, going forward. And he's like, I know, but she wants to have it. And, this is kind of something it's not like a big subplot. It's something that's returned to a couple times throughout the movie. And then you get to feel bad at the end because he's one of the guys that dies right at the very end. So, it is what it is. But it just sets up a little bit of the character, some of the others that aren't the main core officers that we're really going to be following.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have names for them, but you get to learn them. You get to learn like their faces, the way they talk, the way they act, and all that stuff. And you build a camaraderie even if you don't really know their names or like their wants or whatever, just because you know how they will act around each other. Yeah,
no, for sure. And once something does happen, which is, hey, we've spotted. I mean, actually, even before we get to like a proper thing, there's like we see a ship in the distance. Oh, it's a destroyer, and we've got a lot of like looking through the periscope, and the destroyer like pulls like a little stealth move where it kind of disappears, like almost like a horror movie villain, and then like, he turns the periscope and it's gotten a lot closer, and they're like, shit, like dive. But I think a lot of the reasons why this movie's long is because it takes its time with all these scenes where you get him giving all the commands, like building, we're going to be quiet, all right, fill up this tube with water, fill up that tube with a torpedo, whatever, and all these commands that he's giving out, like it does the pacing so that you feel the build up and the tension, and it's like, oh, almost going to release, oh no, we've been caught, shit, dive, and then that's kind of like that big sequence, by and large, because I don't think it's not until after they actually destroy a convoy vessel or two where they have to like push the limits of the depth they can go to, and they all get really nervous because they're going below 150 meters, and it's like rivets start popping, and it's like oh no.
Well, that's they immediately do a diving thing like as soon as they get in the ship, more or less. Obviously like a week or so has passed, but they do a diving thing, and that's where, based on someone talking to the lieutenant, we get the things of like 90 meters, no problem. Down to like 150, it's still fine, but we shouldn't be pushing it that much. Anything past that point, we're rolling the dice. Like, that's where we got to worry about.
Yeah. And would you believe it, when we get later in this movie, we'll be going way past that and really pushing the limits of this thing. So it's, I mean, I think that's the big thing in the middle of the movie, though, is they find this convoy and they don't see any, like, defense around it. They don't see any like ships that are protecting it, so they're like, hey, we're going to take a chance here, we're going to try and take out some of these vessels. It turns out one of them's a tanker. We can say that pretty definitively after the fact. But they shoot a couple of ships and then dive immediately. but there is a destroyer up there, and it ends up being more than one actually, because after they get like a bunch of depth charges and they're really struggling and it's like really tense and stuff, it's like, oh shit, there's a second ping, there's reinforcements, and there's a moment where the captain's like, those bastards, and it's really funny to hear that reaction, because I'm like, yeah, they're doing a good job. They're only bastards because you're on the other end of
Yeah. Somewhere in the middle of all that, when he's still looking for trouble, there's a sequence where they come across another U-boat. Like they come across some other captain, and
I think it's the drunk one from the start. I think it was the Thomason or whatever his name was.
Possible. They never show the other U-boat because again we're locked into this one.
Yeah.
But I love that sequence because obviously they're going stir crazy in there. They're absolutely like losing their minds. But as they see that other one, it's this whole big hullabaloo. They're just like, hey, we came across there. It's like coming across a friend in the store or something like that. And they're so like, the captain's just so happy, so uncharacteristically of whacking him down, saying it. And that's the thing. The moment he comes inside, he's like, those goddamn idiots up top. We got like a dozen boats tops in the Atlantic Ocean, and somehow 2 of them are in the same space. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. How dare they? Yeah,
he's like, hey, we should be evenly spaced out so we can catch any, like, you know, patrols or fleets coming in and out that are from the enemy. And having 2 of us here means that there's a huge gap. There's a huge gap where like an entire fleet of ships can pass through completely opposed, and he's furious about it. The other big thing actually, before they get to the convoy where they do destroy a couple of ships, is there's a whole pretty extended sequence. It's after that first time where they almost like they're looking at the destroyer and they have to dive to get away from it. After that, there's a whole extended chunk of the movie where it's basically the weather is shit and they're just constantly rocking about. That's also the section where some of the men get crabs, so we've got the medics get the magnifying glass out.
Oh my god, that was such a weird sequence because like I didn't see it coming. I was like, what is happening right now? And then all of a sudden this one guy drops his pants. We only see from behind, but like they're really examining. There's like, oh, you got crabs. Fast forward 2 minutes, we get like 6 people, all pants dropped, all out the door seeing the medic, and I guess they all have crabs.
Yeah, I guess obviously there's other ways it can spread, but I was wondering how did it like
yeah. I'm assuming from what I understand, crabs is essentially like a form of lice, especially in like an enclosed place like this. They're all sharing the exact same stuff.
Same
it's
beds.
Just going to spread.
Yeah. Because typically you hear crabs, you think, oh, that's usually through sex that's transmitted. Yeah. Right? So I was immediately like, okay, how did the first guy even get it? Because they've already been at sea for a while. So like,
I mean, maybe he had it and it just got worse and worse and worse over time. So
yeah. So yeah, that's a whole thing. But yeah, like that it's like a little darkly funny little bit of like, this is one of the things they have to deal with out here.
Oh, well, if we're talking darkly funny, one of my favorite bits is I think it's that battleship sequence. I don't think it's the convoy up top. Maybe it is when they have their little celebration moment.
And then he's like, quiet down. Like, okay, we can celebrate, but only for 5 seconds. Everyone quiet down.
No. Like, I mean, maybe that, but like, there's a whole thing where like they do like a dance routine and like there's a band playing because they're like so happy. I think that's after the first battleship that they dodge. But regardless, they go through this whole thing. There's like, there's a dude who's got like oranges around him in like a rope, so they look like boobs as he's dancing around, and he's like got the full get up going on here. And there's people playing music, whatever. And this guy busts in and he's like, everyone shut up. And he seems so pissed. He's so upset. And they're all like, what is it? And he's like, we didn't win the soccer game. We're not going to make the playoffs. And he walks out and everyone's just like now like super upset. And one guy gets all pissed off and he kicks the bucket. I'm like, this is so low stakes comparatively to what we just have. But I love the fact that there's that locked in on the soccer game.
I'm in the Europeans. That's all I can say. Look, I'm someone who lives in a country that people are obsessed with goddamn football. I cannot give less of a shit about it. Don't ask me to explain it. I never could. So, there's a lot of stuff there we're kind of glossing over because, I mean, it's very important for the movie to get this like sense of time passing, this sense of like the being cramped up passing, they're frustrated as well because like they're barely moving because the waves are so strong that the engines and the fuel are just being wasted if they try and use them. So it's like, oh, I guess we're just drifting. That's partially why they even run into the other submarine, I think, actually, is because like they're kind of, they're at the mercy of the ocean to an extent.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, like they're really having a tough time of it. And that's partly why when they do get to this convoy, it's like such a, almost like an oasis in the desert of like, oh, we found something, we can finally do something. Let's do it. They're eager to like justify their existence, right? It's like, we're useful, we're doing something to actually to help the war effort. And yeah, like, we get the depth charges, which I do think look very good actually, because obviously we don't get a lot of combat stuff, but I think the exterior shots of the charges going off look pretty cool.
I agree that they look good when I first see them, but I also think that they loop the same footage multiple times. And
that's fair.
It's almost so quick you don't notice, but like there's certain shots that I was like, I feel like that's the exact same shot we used the past 3 depth charges.
Okay, fair. I didn't notice that, to be fair, but that's a fair critique. I can't argue with that.
Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's miniatures involved. Like, I don't think they actually blew up these things next to their full-scale model explosion, but it looks good. It looks solid. They make it fast enough and hard enough that it's, it's like a muzzle flash. Or even if the muzzle flash looks like crap, unless it's horribly bad, it happens so quick you almost don't even know. Yeah. You just know explosion good.
Yeah, and then there's some good little bits here where the captain's like kind of waiting and going, "Wait, is that all they've got? Like, have we lost them or what?" And eventually, yeah, like they get away and like, okay, it's been 6 hours. We're going to go back and see, like, up top, what did we do? And they're surprised that one of the tankers, it turned out to be, is not actually sank yet. It's still on fire, and part of the reason why it's still on fire is because it was a tanker. It had fuel in it, lots of fuel. And they're like, okay, well, let's fire an torpedo to take it down once and for all. And the big sort of...
It's been a few hours. Everyone's evacuated. Yeah. We just take it out so they can't get any of their stuff back.
Yeah, that's basically the idea of it. But the surprise here, the dark twist, if you want to call it that, is that once they do hit it again, and it does start to sink, they see people jumping off the boat. And they're like, shit, why wasn't it evacuated? It was 6 hours ago. Why have they not been rescued by now? And they have to make this choice where, like, they see them swimming for the U-boat because they've got nowhere else to go. And the captain's like, nope, turn around, go. And they never, like, say it out loud, but it's like, yeah, where are they going to put these people? If they took prisoners of war, like, where are they going to go? So it's just this dark side of it is, like, we just kind of have to leave these people to die. And they just go.
And that's like, you get this bit of, like, a records keeper on the boat, and he's forced to explain the situation in words of, like, we saw men, they were swimming towards us, we turned around and left.
It's the captain writing that.
Oh, is that the captain?
Yeah, it's literally just the captain writing this, and you can see like the weight in his face as he's putting this down. So don't worry. I think if Hitler reads this, he's going to love it. He's going to think, great, yeah, let them die.
He's like, nailed it, sweet, good job.
But yeah, he's got a bit of a conscience, so he's actually quite upset about it as he goes. So. And this is like, like, it's funny because we've kind of talked about almost 2 hours of the movie at this point in a sense, right? This is a lot of it, and the big turning point's coming.
Rewind 30 minutes ago, we already talked about an hour and a half of this movie. Like, so much of that, like, oh, we're going out and we're just waiting, we want something to happen, that takes up like a long period. One thing that did happen during the attacking the convoy bit, because when they were getting hit by depth charges, when the reinforcements were called back up, the engines guy, Johann, lost his shit.
He had a panic attack, I guess we'll call it, where he basically came up out of the main deck, if you want, whatever you want to call it, and started freaking out. And the captain tells him to go back to his post a couple times, whatever. And when it's clear that he's losing his shit, the captain just goes somewhere, right, to his quarters, wherever it is. And the crew basically like grab Johann and force him back to where he is because they know what's about to happen, and it's effectively the captain was going to come out and shoot him because like he's a liability right now. I'm going to have to put him down, and the crew know this, and they protect Johann by effectively manhandling him back to where he was. And this is kind of a basically it's not the start. I mean, obviously we've seen Johann a few times before now, but it's basically the start of this little story, this sort of subplot with him, which is that after this, after everything's calmed down, he comes to the captain and says, hey, I wanted to apologize. And he's very nervous about it at this point. And the captain's like, you abandoned your post during a critical moment, because we're literally in combat, and you also disobeyed an order when I gave it to you. Like, this is pretty serious, and he's like, are you going to court-martial me? And the captain clearly doesn't want to. The captain, he's very thoughtful about it. He sits there and considers it, and he's like, how many like tours have you done? And he's like, this is my 9th, and he's like, and it's never happened before, and he promises it'll never happen again, and he's like, all right, go to bed. And he's like, so no court-martial? And he's like, just go. It was just to say, yes, no court-martial, but I'm not
saying the word no, but get out of here.
Yeah, and this becomes a thing, because when shit goes down in the last hour of the movie, Johan ends up being instrumental in like helping fix things that saves everyone's lives. And then ultimately at the end, he's one of the guys that just happens to die at the very end. And it's like a really gut punch of like a thing of like, he had this arc of like losing his shit, then kind of finding himself again, saving everyone and being very useful, and then just like nothing, he's gone.
If we ever describe a character and like it sounds like we like this character and they like did a good thing at some point, that character's going to die. Like, that is how this is going to work. They're going to die at the very end.
To be fair, the ginger was never likable.
Did the ginger die? I don't like.
Yeah,
he's just a pile of bodies. I don't remember seeing him.
He was one of the deaths at the end. So was the young guy with the fiance. He was also one of the guys at the end that were dead.
Well, we said we liked the young guy with the fiance.
Yeah, and then
I think the engineer survives.
Yeah, the main engineer does survive. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because he makes his way back into the bunker area.
Yeah,
but that's like the only one. There
was like 4 recognizable characters they showed at the end that died, aside from the captain, who seemingly also dies in the final moments of the movie. But yeah, so the big thing here at this point of the story, though, is that they're all saying, "Hey, Captain, are we going home? Because we're kind of, we took some damage in that last fight. We've used a lot of our weapons. We're down on food and fuel. Surely it's time to like go and home for a bit." And he gets a little bit tetchy about it. He's like, "Oh, when I give the order." But he's like, he writes in his journal after he's written all that other stuff. He's like, "And that's when at 700 hours I decided it's time to go home." So the crew are actively excited because the timing lines up that it's going to be Christmas. And they're so excited about going back to the same town in France. There's a lot of girls to ask out there, apparently. So they're all excited about getting
it's
some
the French
action.
Girls. Are you kidding me? Absolutely.
Right? So they're all excited about it, but then the captain gets like a for his eyes only, piece of correspondence, and he sits down, he reads it, and then we hear over the comms, "Oh, we've been ordered not to go back to the same town. We're actually going to be restocking, kind of slyly, a docked boat in Spain, and then our orders to go down into the Mediterranean." And like everyone's just like their morale is just instantly crushed. It's like, oh shit, like this is bad.
And it's like some people it's because, oh, I'm not going home. That's a bummer. But then some people are like, hey, based off of where they want us to go, we have to go through the Strait of Gibraltar. That ain't easy, man.
Yeah,
that is
bad.
A bad time.
It's narrow, and there's a lot of British naval ships and docks in that area, and it's a bad time. And that's something that clearly the captain thought as well the entire time, because one of the plot points here is that he tells the lieutenant who's doing the report and the photos and all that, he's like, "Hey, the first engineer's wife's sick, right? The chief engineer, he's going to get off when we refuel and all that, and so are you, because you're not technically, you're not an officer, you're not really on part of the team, you've been here long enough.
You've taken enough pictures of men in their beards. Get out of here."
But he's like, "Hey, you go with it." And he almost kind of sells it to him as, "Hey, the chief engineer's wife is sick. He needs to go, and you basically get to help him. You basically go with him because you're going to have to kind of sneak through Spain. So it's not going to be even like a nice journey either. It's going to be a little bit of a."
Yeah, Spain is neutral at this point, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but he says agents will get you out, which implies that it's not going to be just like, you're just gonna go to the airport. Like it's going to be a bit more cloak and daggery, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it being neutral means there's both sides present. Yeah. Like you got to be careful who you trust. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, right, and then obviously we get the big scene that we alluded to earlier, which, and I think in a lot of ways, like I don't know if it's the best scene of the movie. There's definitely some arguments for some of the stuff that's coming up after it, but I think in terms of like a prominent scene that really sticks out is like a break. It's this scene where they meet the uniformed guys out on the boat, where they're presented with a big buffet, and just the clash of them, which we kind of already brought it up, but like this sequence is the standout of like, even the one who's the devout Nazi, the first officer, even he like, while he's still dressed better than the others, he's still beat up enough. He's still a bit sweaty. He's still a bit bruised. He still kind of sticks out compared to the others.
Oh yeah,
you know.
No, because this is the point. This is all the way like 2 hours 40 minutes in. Like this 2.5 hours. This is the point where we get to like send them back into the quote unquote real world and compare the difference. Like, what has this sub taken and changed about our heroes, and to see the difference between them now, to see like, oh yeah, all those bright-eyed doughy boys who loaded into the submarine, they're gone. They aren't here anymore. This is what's left.
Yeah, and these officers here, they're like just walking propaganda, basically. Like they're just they've clearly never seen any real action themselves. They've never actually been in these dire straits, and they talk these guys up, which sounds good on paper, but it's all kind of just like propping up their own idea of what their own country's war effort is, rather than actually respecting the people they're talking to. It's all self-serving, and it's all, you know, it has this awkward tension to it the entire time. You can tell they feel a bit uncomfortable, aside from maybe being excited about having some proper food to eat for a minute.
Right. But yeah, and then like almost immediately, even during the meeting, Captain gets word, and he's like, nope, I got word from on high. The engineer and the lieutenant are not going to be able to stay off the boat. They're staying with, so they're coming with us on this absolute suicide mission of trying to go through the Strait of Gibraltar.
Yeah. Which, you know, and the engineer even says, well, probably for the best. I mean, who knows who they might have replaced me with. And the funny thing is, yeah, as much as I said Johan like was instrumental in saving everyone, even more so as the chief engineer. He basically saves the day by like just fixing everything once everything goes bad.
Johan is like the emergency responder. Like, he's the guy who gets everything from critical down to stable. And then the chief engineer is the guy who goes from stable to cured. Yeah,
he's the surgeon. He's the one who's going to actually fix all the parts. And you know, because things get very, because they're on their mission. They're peeking out and they're looking around, and the captain's got this plan. He's like, oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to dive, and we're going to just sort of go with the current. We'll go underneath them. Nobody knows where you're. And of course, it all goes to shit immediately, because when they're just scoping things out, a plane, like an allied plane, just comes in and shoots them. The navigator gets shot. And so he gets taken to the medic, and immediately they have to dive, and they end up diving way past the 150 mark, to the point where it's like 250, which is at the end of the scale. The actual meter doesn't go past that, so they get to what they think is about 280 based on where the needle is, but you can't actually be sure.
It's not even like they're intending to do that. Like, everything's so chaotic, like that. But when they start hitting that level, they try to come back out of it. They're just like, okay, pull up a little bit. But it's too fast, it's too hard, and they cannot get out of it before they crash into the bottom of the strait, which just so happens to be around 260.
Well, I think the key thing is, though, is that like they lose control, and it's actually a good thing they land in the seabed, because if they kept going, they'd have just died. Like, they'd just imploded. They'd have just been destroyed. Like, the captain even says it's actually kind of a miracle from God that we even like found a bit of seabed to land on. This was like a morsel, like, to give us a chance, because we've found something to like stop our descent. But by this point, they've taken on a lot of water, so that's the first thing they have to deal with. So there's a lot of sneaking around, getting in and out of water, trying to like fix things under the water, then bucketing the water out because they have to get lighter. And then the other big concern, of course, is that the more time we spend down here, the more time the oxygen's running out, and the more carbon dioxide we're pumping back out into the air. So you've got a lot of the men sleeping with oxygen masks on and things like that, because they're trying to use up the excess supply that they've got, and not just all the air that's actually floating around. So
no, it's a long sequence too. Like, it's there's this idea, obviously, that the engineer floats around of, okay, we can get all the water in one place, load it into ballast tanks, and then shoot it out with compressed air. And like, it's going to require me to fix like 15 different functions of the ship that have all gone offline because of us being shelled and then sinking to the bottom of the sea. But if I can do all of that, then theoretically this might maybe work. And that's the only hope that they have. But so much of the sequence is basically just the slow losing of hope. the realization of we are going to die, not in glorious combat, but here at the bottom of the sea, completely ignored and forgotten about.
Yeah, and there's a lot of one-on-one scenes, like the lieutenant talks to the chief engineer, and the chief engineer basically says, like, this was a suicide mission, and this is why the captain wanted us off the boat, because he knew that as soon as he got those orders, he knew, and he wanted us off because my wife's sick and because you're technically not, like, you know, part of the Navy.
Yeah.
So we should have gotten off, but we didn't.
He specifically asked for 2 more high-ranking Nazi officers that were really into it to fill our place.
So it's like, okay, we're setting that up, and yeah, Johann kind of pulls through, and he's the one that stops the water coming in. Yep. Chief engineer fixes a bunch of the systems when the time comes, and that's all cool. And yeah, over the course of this entire section, one of my favorite things about this whole part is that when everything is fixed and they're kind of ready to, like, maybe give it a try, and the captain's basically just giving this speech about, oh, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're hoping is going to happen, and we'll hope for the best. I love that every single person in the scene, like, the actors do a great job of all struggling to breathe at the same time. Like, they're all, like, just gasping in this kind of, like, way where they've clearly put some thought into it and they're all doing it. And I'm like, you're selling the idea that it's getting difficult to breathe. And to the point where when they do get back up top and they open the hatch at the top, there's just like they're all just at the bottom of the hatch, just like sucking in air because, like, finally some fresh air's coming in. This is the best.
Yeah. I like the sequence right before that where it's the captain sitting down with the lieutenant, and it's effectively the emotional, like, opening up. It's just like, look, these are our final hours. We're definitely going to die here. And the lieutenant's like, oh, come on, is there literally no hope? And he's like, no, there is literally no hope. It's been 16 hours. We're at the bottom of the strait. I love our chief engineer, but, like, if he was going to do it, he would have done it by now. There's no way.
And he comes in at the end of the scene. He literally comes in and says, I fixed the sonar, I fixed the engine, I fixed the water tubes, I fixed the 3 other things, and it's like, we're ready to go.
And it's like a 45-second long cutting back and forth of the captain's face just slowly lighting up and just being like, oh my god,
like, yeah,
you're the best.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, very well, good, as they say in Germany.
Yeah. And he's like, now go ahead and take some rest. You need it. He's like, nah, I'm not. Like, don't get me wrong. Big problems fixed. Small problems still left. I'm going to go work on those.
Yeah, I mean, the whole section is very tense, and, like, the sense of atmosphere, and this is where I didn't want to, like, spoil this too much before, but when I was talking about the sound mix, like, this is where it gets kind of quiet, but there's, like, the water dripping in the background and stuff like that, and, like, behind you. All those little sound details really put you in there with them. And I think this, especially this last chunk, is really where that stuff really comes into effect. So no, it's great. Yeah, obviously, there's the whole, like, we're going to pump out the water with the compressed air and see if we can get off the rock. And sure enough, eventually it does after some, you know, tense watching of the needle. Is it going to move? Is it going to move?
Yeah, and it's like, you know, it starts raising up, they start coming up to the surface, and they're like, okay, all right, we got to do all this extra stuff. But then you get that shot of them coasting back home. Everyone else in the area has left. They've managed to sneak out, and they start heading back to the port that they left from at the beginning. And it's okay because the ship is absolutely held together by duct tape. Like, there's no way this thing is battle ready. They can't go back out. But as they're doing that, you get that, like, really high pomp and energy version of the theme playing, like, we are victorious, we've done it, we've made it out alive, only, like, one guy kind of got shot, but he's stable, don't worry about him.
And that's the thing, the victory's just surviving. Like, that's what the victorious music's playing for. One of the details I liked as well, actually, is that when they're trying to, like, get rid of the water, it's like we have to, like, move it all into, like, these tubes or whatever to get it out. I like that the lieutenant's actually helping with that. You can see him with the bucket. It's like, oh, he's just pitching in now, because at this point it doesn't matter what his training is, he can help with the bucket of water.
Yeah, no, it's at that, I'm pretty sure at that point he also starts letting himself get a little bit more unkempt. It's kind of this visual identity of, like, look, in the face of death, your ideals go out the window for survival. Like, this is absolutely what it's going to be. Yeah.
Well, I was talking about the lieutenant who was doing the report. You're talking about the lieutenant, the first officer. But I mean, you're right. He does get more unkempt towards the end as well. Yeah. And it's interesting because they never do, like, because I feel like a lot of people would have a temptation to do, like, the scene where he, like, maybe says something that implies that his mind has changed about what he believes in, and they never do that. They just, like, he just looks like one of them at the end, and you can read that how you like. Like,
Yeah.
you can choose to believe he's changed, that he's not just thinking about it, the party anymore or whatever, but it's just there for you to decide for yourself. It's not like something to do a big speech where he's like, oh, I renounce Adolf and everything he stands for.
Yeah, I doubt that it's ever anything like that, but I do think in the same vein as the boys go into this sub thinking that they'll be war heroes and thinking that like they'll be welcome back, even if they don't believe in the Nazi ideology, they still think that they'll come back as like, you know, the same selves, and they'll have stories to talk about, and it'll all be right up to the edge of danger, but never actually that worrying. Obviously, it shoots past that. I think it's the same for him, where he had this ideology of like, oh yes, I am part of the Ubermensch. I am above all of these other younger boys, and I have this special place. And being put in a situation just kind of shook that and be like, no, maybe not. Like at the very least, I'm not above these guys. These guys, I should be down on the same level as.
Yeah. At the very least, maybe a start to him rethinking about what he feels and believes is perhaps a thing. But yeah, I mean, the end of the movie's a gut punch though, because it's basically like, hey, they get to come home, and we do have that kind of comparison of like everyone's waving and cheering, and they don't look like they're ready to enjoy that as much as they were at the start of the movie. It's a very, very
they are
different
ready to
vibe.
get out of the sub, but it doesn't feel like they're there for the party.
And they're carrying out the navigator who was shot, all the rest of it. And just as they're literally getting off the boat, Allied planes are attacking this naval base, and there's just bombs dropping. So we get them all running around. We get the civilians that were there running around, and people are diving for cover. And we focus on the lieutenant. He's the one that we kind of follow his kind of reactions to everything, and he sees the others, and he's in some shelter eventually. And then he sort of walks back to where they arrived, you know, at the port, and he sees lying dead the second officer, Johann, the young guy with the fiancée, and then eventually he sees the captain, who's just still standing up, but he's bleeding from the mouth, clearly injured, looking out at the sub, which is actually now sinking right after they've gotten home. Like, it's actually going down for good now, seemingly. And then he collapses, and that's, you know, the movie pulls back.
Lieutenant rolls him over. We do a wide shot showing all the destruction. The lieutenant's just looking out like, boy, this sure was the boat.
It's obviously, it's going for that stark ending, because like this is an anti-war movie, right? Obviously that's what it is, right? Like, arguably all war movies should be anti-war movies, and if they're not, they're propaganda. Like, that's basically like the cheat sheet here for anyone. So yeah, I think the ending works. I think it's, you know, it's stark. I think it's like, hey, it wasn't even like the submarine stuff that got you killed in the end, but you went through all this and it didn't matter in the end for some of you. Yeah, you know, some survive, obviously. They don't all die, but
yeah, I mean, I especially appreciate the idea of like, if you look at the whole list of what they actually did here, they sunk a tanker and some convoy ships. Like, there's a point somewhere in the middle. I think it's just after they sink the tanker, is they get a bunch of radiograms from other U-boat officers and like the stuff that they're doing. And some of them are reporting like, oh, we sunk some convoys. I think one of them says like, oh, we took down a battleship, like we took down a destroyer or something like that. And they're like, oh, that action sounds good. Can we get over to them? And it's this idea that we are not following an exceptional ship. We are not following an exceptional, like, they decimated the Allies or anything like that. It's just a couple of convoys, and they just got the crappiest possible end of they sunk into Gibraltar and managed to come back up. Like, they're limping home. This is not a success story.
No.
But like you said, the success is survival. The fact that they managed to do that after everything they went through makes you feel like, yes, they did it. Great. Congratulations. Even if you look at the record on paper and said, you didn't actually do all that damn much for the war effort.
And just to go back to that scene on the boat with the officers, like the guy even leans into the captain at one point and says, go on, how many ships have you sunk? Let me guess. Right. And they get cut off because, you know, I think they get interrupted with the message coming in or whatever, something that interrupts them. But it's like, oh God, that conversation wasn't going to go well because the answer was 2. Right? Yeah. It's been 2 since they left.
2.5. the tanker still had some people on it, and they sunk it again. So that counts.
I mean, I was counting that as one of the two, but
yeah, but they sunk it again. They shot another torpedo at it.
I mean, that's some cook in the books. Like, I mean, technically didn't sink the first time, so I don't even know if the second time I would count.
Yeah,
the first time, I don't know if you could count.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that idea of like, these expectations, and if like, maybe if the answer's not impressive enough, they'll say, oh, what were you doing out there? So you weren't even good war heroes. And it's like, so we almost died repeatedly. We've come back changed and traumatized, and you're not even satisfied with the work we did. Oh, that's great.
I mean, I feel like that also expands out to just any branch of the military as well. Because like, like, I can't imagine a more insensitive question to a soldier than how many people did you kill?
Yeah, I mean that's Rambo in a nutshell. Is he comes back and no one wants to do it. Put up with him, like,
right.
Half the people think he's awful because he was over there shooting people. The other half are like, oh, you didn't win the war for us, so we're mad at you for that, and no one likes him.
Yep, and all the mental problems that he brings back with him from killing people is, a little bit troubling for the rest of the people.
Not dealt with sensitively by those around him, dare I say.
Yes, correct.
So, yeah, I mean, that's just, like, again, it's dealing with these very typical war soldier stories of the trauma of it, and that's kind of the point of this movie, is to make you sort of understand and appreciate the experience as best you can through the art form, and that's what this tries to do. And I think it's fair to say that it's Wolfgang Petersen's best movie. I don't think anything else that I've seen by him compares. Maybe if you really like the whimsy, like, adventure of Neverending Story, you might pick that, but like, that's about it.
I'm just looking at it. I can't point to anything that I would say, no, I think I like that a lot more. Definitely not Enemy Mine. Can't point to that one.
No, of course not.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I like Air Force One. It's a fun movie. It's, and I'm sure one day we'll do that in either a plane season or a siege season or whatever season it'll fit into. But it's
I want an angry Harrison Ford season. I feel like we could fill that.
I mean,
up.
we could do that. Yeah, we could totally do that. That's it. I don't know how people feel about The Perfect Storm. I've heard of The Perfect Storm. I don't know how people feel about it.
The fact that I've heard of it, but I've never heard anyone talking about it, I feel like speaks more.
Yeah.
Than actually hearing anything good or bad about it.
Yeah, and it is also him doing water stuff again, and maybe that's a bad sign. That said, though, this cast is kind of wild. Like George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, Diane Lane, William Fichtner, Karen Allen, Bob Gunton, Mary Elizabeth Mastriano from The Abyss. That's wild. And John C. Reilly. I literally recognize every name I just said in that list.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's leading off with Mark Wahlberg is a strong choice, but
Yeah, I'm not fond of Mark Wahlberg. That's I mean, it's almost got a deficit going in, just for that reason. But no, that's like it does feel like one of those movies that people probably should see at some point. It's the sort of thing where I feel like any history class talking about World War II should show Das Boot in addition to whatever else they're showing, because it's only one of the few movies that is from the other side of the conflict for a start, but doesn't it's humanizing the things and whatnot, and also it's like it's the horrors of war and all that, and that should be emphasized repeatedly when teaching people about war.
Yeah. Plus, if you time it right, you can have the crab scene line up for sex ed class, and you can just roll right through it.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Like, other than maybe giggling at the crabs, there's nothing really inappropriate for like a younger audience in this, really.
No. I mean, a little bit of cursing in the translation, but I think that if you're at the point where you're talking about the horrors of World War II in a even kind of okay way, you should be okay with a little bit of cursing.
Yeah. I don't think it's I don't know what it's technically rated these days. It's maybe an R just for the kind of like atmosphere more than anything else, but
yeah. I can't see this getting a PG-13 by any reasonable current day setting. So I'd say it has to be an R. It's definitely not NC-17, which is the only other option.
It's an R, and it's a 15 in the UK for intense war violence, mature themes, and some strong language. Okay.
That's fair.
But yeah.
Even if it's not sex stuff, I mean, the MPAA is so weird about violence where some things are okay and some things are not. But I definitely feel like seeing people on fire off of a torpedoed boat and then leaving them to die in the water, someone on the MPAA is going to be like, okay, yeah, that's too much for little 13-year-olds.
I mean, it isn't really, but yeah, sure. What I would say actually about that scene, because we kind of didn't really talk about the visuals of it too much, is I love that they're kind of just in silhouette from a distance. You never see a face of any of these people from the tanker that's jumped in the water. It's all sort of vague silhouettes in the distance, surrounded by fire, and then they kind of fade into darkness as we move away from them. It's actually very, very good.
Also visually, from a level of every single time that they've been topside before, it's been blues. It's been, here's the blue sky, the blue water, the sea foam coming up, whatever like that. Yeah. But when they come up here, it's bathed in blood red. Everything is just irradiated by this fire, and it gives a very different feel as to what's about to happen. Yeah,
the only exception to that is there is one really nice shot. I assume it's in the first hour, but it's like there's like a sunset happening in the background, so it's just the captain with his binoculars in silhouette against the sunset, and it looks really pretty. But yeah, most of the time, it's just this almost just grey, because it's not a strong blue. It's just like the dark waters of the ocean and whatever else.
I will say, maybe you caught onto this as much as I did. Several of the topside scenes, particularly those that it feels like are filmed in profile, I got the strong vibe that those were all composited shots rather than like any, I don't know, certain shots it feels like we were able to move around a little bit. We were able to be up on the top. Obviously, I didn't expect them to just be out in the middle of the ocean, so there was some level of compositing there. But certain ones, it felt very locked into this profile angle and with water just coming in from one direction on the side.
I feel like most of the shots up top were composites, and I think it was noticeable, but not like super distracting. Like it was kind of fair for the era the movie was made in. I would say, but even from the front, I was noticing composites every time they were up top. But it's not something that was bothering me. I will say.
Yeah, I'm just there were certain times that it just felt more locked into a single position, whereas other times it felt like it was able to move around a little bit more to different angles. And I'm just curious, maybe what would have caused that? Maybe it's on reshoots. Maybe they weren't able to get the like submarine bit back. I don't know.
No, I mean, honestly, it may just be that, like, doing that simple locked-on shot that they used a few times might have just been quicker to set up, so they picked and chose when they wanted to put the extra effort in to set up the more complex shots with that's topside stuff. Whereas,
that's fair.
X number of shots, we'll just do it this quicker way because we know we can do it, in like half the time or whatever it is. Right. So,
okay.
That would be my guess between it. It would be like a time issue. So, yeah. That's what's very good. It's hard hitting. It feels, you feel sweaty and you feel wet and smelly by the end of it. But not in like a bad way, like a Rob Zombie movie. In a way where like, no, I feel like I was there on the submarine with all these men, and like I've went through the horrors of war a little bit, and I understand it.
I've got this weird image now of Rob Zombie's Das Boot.
Well, everyone would have like long hair for a start, which is very like the opposite of the military. But
absolutely, I don't know how you really square that one.
And somehow there would be a stripper pole dancing in the middle of the submarine, which also is kind of weird. But
that's the periscope pole.
Yeah,
you just double purpose it.
Obviously played by his wife Sherry Moon Zombie, who gets naked in most Rob Zombie movies. But that's anyway. Well then, it is time to rate Das Boot out of 10. So David, what are you giving it?
Well, I want to give a little special shout out to people who watch the ratings rundown available on Patreon, because this is going to be absolutely no surprise from either of us. Literally, no surprise at all.
However, they don't usually get to see that until after the episodes went out, so it's not like, I mean, for us, we just did the ratings rundown, so we know what we give all those other categories, but they won't know that yet.
I've always been under the implicit nature that like a good viewer would cut right before we gave the ratings and then go watch the ratings rundown and come back.
No.
Okay.
But it's very obvious to us what we're about to rate this, I think, for both of us, because it would make no sense to rate it anything else. So just absolutely
go for it. Yep, 7.5. Really, no. This movie is a 9. This movie is absolutely far and away fantastic, great movie. Almost nothing negative to say. It's just the only thing keeping it from a 10 in my personal thing is a 10 kind of needs to have some level of like a special connection, something that like I'm bringing in emotionally, that like I just love this movie for something special that the movie itself does not have in its text. This is great, but it's great in all the text ways. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. What does a German man yell when he sees a piano coming down on top of him? 9! Because 9 out of 10 is also my rating. It's excellent. It makes the point that it wants to make. The atmosphere is impeccable. It feels like you're there. All the details to the sounds, the sights, everything being wet, everyone's tempers, everyone's feeling tired, the breathing when there's no oxygen, like everything just all works. And then this idea of it being, a German book and then German filmmakers looking at the experience of this war, but it's got nothing to do with glorifying what the country was being run by at the time. And it's just an interesting perspective that, you don't get that often. Certainly I've not seen many perspectives from this side. So it makes it very worthwhile to be important in that sense. And, luckily the filmmaking's there to live up to it and nail it and make it a worthwhile film in its own right. So, yep, there you go. That is that. I guess we have to decide if it makes the cut. Clearly it does. Yes. I suppose the debate would be, does it factor into a cut above?
Look, we can feign a debate if you want, but I feel like we're both probably on the same level here of it's a cut above.
Yeah. I think if we're both giving it a 9, it's probably pretty clearly a cut above.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know how many of the movies that we've done so far out of the 277 films we've done are in the 1,001 movies you have to watch. That's
including extra reels and stuff, right?
Oh, that's right. I forgot that the spreadsheet I'm using has that.
We have not done over 200 collector's cuts yet, because I know we're not at 200 yet.
Well, if you count the bonus episodes, technically we are over that, but fair enough. Out of those, I don't know how many we've done out of the 1,001 movies you have to watch before you die list, but the fact that this is one of them, I feel like almost not guarantees it a spot, but at least it's in the conversation no matter what.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of movies in that book that I don't like. So, I mean, it's not a guarantee that all of them would just shoot to cut above. But yeah.
That's fair.
So, yeah. There you go. That is that. But next time on Collector's Cut, it's the continuing submarine season. We're doing another really famous one, and that is The Hunt for Red October. So that is what's coming up next week on the show. And of course, you can support the Collector's Cut as well as all the other stuff we do, including the sci-fi movie podcast that is also me and David, called The Atomic Cinema Experiment. Check out that if you haven't, but you can support both shows by going to Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you can get access to the ratings rundown segments we do for each episode. Plus, we do a bonus monthly show called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst movies ever made. In fact, this month had like a free extra episode for everyone, so you can check out our review of Club Lingerie, regardless of being a patron or not, and then the regular Patreon episode will be at the end of the month, like it usually is, and you can check out the back catalogue of about 45 or so of those. So, yeah, have fun with that. But,
we sure didn't.
But there you go. That is the show, everyone. That has been the Collector's Cut. So thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.